Here we are.
Money questions with
The plus side. The plus side.
the plus.
A positive conversation about money.
Yeah. Sundays.
I know. I get into my DJ voice
I'm-
here.
I'm here for it.
Yeah.
And we have the DJ setup. So
Did you know that I once was a basketball announcer?
I would believe that.
Yeah. Played my first 2 years in college on the team. Spent my last 2 years being the PA.
You know, I got kicked out of every basketball game I ever went to in college. And I would just positively heckle, but I was the only person screaming in the whole gym.
Yeah.
And they said it was not Christ-like.
Well, I mean, try this out. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Preacher Dome.
Preacher Dome?
Which is where my college
The
team
Fighting
played.
Preachers. Yeah.
Are the Fighting Preachers.
Which, when I was there, the Preacher Dome was the cafeteria.
Yes, that's true. Many years later, Mitch is a little bit younger than I am, so.
Just like 12 minutes.
Justin Davis, that's a 3.
That's a 3. So we are back to reality. Oh, there goes gravity. We are referring back to The Plus Side, a series of messages that we've been doing that has been about money and, in some ways, the honesty of like, hey, you and I, like you and I tackled this one together.
Yep.
You and I are not financial advisors.
We are not.
We are pastors.
Consult your own tax attorney or whatever you need to do.
Yeah, please. Or get one if you're in my shoes. But what we can do is point you to how Scripture would probably interpret it, how we would interpret that Scripture, how God would invite us into maybe even thinking about money differently, patterning your life differently. And so, Greg, you've asked for questions. We've gotten natural questions over the course of the 3 weeks.
And we love questions, genuinely.
Yes, absolutely.
Like, we love them in the comments area afterwards. We get some emails afterwards.
Yes.
You send them in response to the note from Greg.
Yep.
Keep that coming, because we're on a little pattern here for after each series, we're kind of doing this.
I mean, ask good questions.
Yeah.
You know, don't ask bad ones. But we've got a bunch of good ones. So this, let's just start at the very top here. Money questions. From someone who grew up poor in a pastor's home and felt the strain of it. Is it wrong to neglect setting up your family for financial stability?
Yeah. The short answer is no, it is not wrong to set up your family for financial stability. But there's so much about just the context of this question that came into us that I thought, oh, can I say a few things about that?
Go for it.
First of all, I'm like, I don't believe in pastors getting rich. I also don't believe in pastors being forced to stay poor. And you do see that in churches. And it's not just churches. This is the principle. Anyone who's an employer out there, the scriptures are very strong to not take advantage of your employees, right? Like, I understand difficult situations. We all face those sorts of things, but I see that happen, sadly, in ministry families. So my compassion goes out to her. Like, that's possibly what's going on there. And then, you kind of get in this place where it's like, okay, it sounded like even her family was just giving and giving and giving and giving. And it was the kids who, like, I don't know the level of need. Like, we didn't have shoes to wear, or we didn't get to go to Disney World. Wasn't
Right.
in here, but I don't think it was we didn't get to go to Disney. Sure.
At least from inferring how it's set up. Or I'll choose to believe that's not what it is.
And so, we'll talk about some of the back and forth between our trust in God and his provision for us. But absolutely, when it comes to providing needs, take care of your family. Most of us can do generosity alongside of that. But I do think it can get off balance where you're so generous that you don't even take care of the people God's given you to provide for. So just be careful about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had a really fun email conversation with a friend of both of ours who,
He's a smart dude.
oh my, he is just one of the most analytical, intelligent, thoughtful, and I don't know if you've met people like that. Maybe you have too, but sometimes even in the whirlwind of trying to be that, it does create a whirlwind of like question after question after question, thought after thought after thought.
He sent you a list.
He sent me a list. And so, like, there was questions about, like, contentment versus discontentment, contentment versus comfort, how much of contentment and comfort is enough,
Mm-hmm.
like, all of these things. And so, like, let's just tackle them, like, one down the other, right?
Yeah.
Contentment versus discontentment. So, like, some of his questions were around the idea of, like, don't you need to be discontent in order to know that you need to be content?
Right.
And, like, the honest statement is, like, I mean, it's a really good indicator, right? I mean, in some ways, you can treat it like the warning light, like, on your dash. Like,
Yes.
hey, if you're starting to feel discontent, it's probably your life, your soul, God even, probably telling you you're not calibrated right, and you need to probably get a tune-up of
Mm-hmm.
how you're functioning, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and in some ways, it's like it's a signal that you're actually wanting something more than the things that you've been assuming are going to bring you contentment.
Right.
And I don't know, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, I just think it is a great question, and we like this when, like, someone asks a really good question, and it's like, okay, well, there's nothing wrong with hungering for something, with
No.
being driven
Yeah.
towards something, but I think, and you did a great job in your message with this, the sense that, like, okay, but what am I being driven by?
Yeah.
What what where does my contentment lie? Do I think I'll be content when I have $10,000 more or $1,000,000 more? That's a fool's game
Mhm.
for people who think about it, but people chase that all the time.
All the time.
Is my contentment in a sense of, like, I mean, sometimes I tell people, I'm like, well, however much you have, it's probably how much God wants you to have. Now,
Yeah.
I, there's more conversation that can be had
There's
around that,
nuance to that that requires relationship.
but it does make me content in the sense that, hey, God's given each of us enough. And so where would be the discontent? Well, I mean, discontent can come in, but I want to provide more in God's kingdom. It can be, I want to build a business that employs more people and that creates growth and
Yeah,
drive.
it's that build thing.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, but you got to figure out, like, am I trying to solve an itch inside of me that is from God or isn't
Yeah.
from God?
Yeah. We talk all the time about the circle, right?
Yes.
Which if you're unfamiliar with that, you can find messages on that. Just search for the circle in either our media page on our website or the media tab in our app, where basically it's like, hey, something's being used to get your attention, and we're gonna assume it's God. So like God is using something to get your attention,
Yeah.
and he's probably trying to change your mind about something. So he's trying to say something to you, probably about who he is, or show you something about the kingdom of God that's probably different than how you're currently thinking.
Yes.
And then that invitation of this is what's being said to you to change your mind would actually then change what you do. And so, like, what would you do differently if your mind is changed because this is getting your attention? Like, that
Yeah.
all the time
Yeah.
is how we're trying to process what God is doing. And in contentment, like, we can wrestle with that in all kinds of ways. And which led to one of his follow-up questions, which is like, so then, like, contentment versus my comfort, then not even like, how can I actually know contentment if I don't have
Right.
discontentment? It's like, well, how do I know when is enough contentment?
Right.
And aren't I called to, and maybe it's this way, and it kind of gets back to that first question, like, aren't I called to just blanketly sacrifice? Like,
Right.
just purely
Mhm.
sacrifice? And the answer is like, sacrifice, yes. Surrender is probably the better way to
Yes.
word that.
For sure.
We're called to surrender,
Right.
which I know you have a lot to say around that.
I do. I'll try to keep it brief, but, I surrender my desires to God's desires, right? So that's yielding to his way. So I surrender my way to his way. And I mean, we work with words a lot, and in the scriptures, words really matter.
Mm.
But it is interesting because it could be like, hey, the pastor told me to be content, but he seemed upset when I got too comfortable, right? Or the pastor told me not to be discontent,
Yeah.
and yet he always wants me to be striving to grow more.
Yeah.
So I'm going to come back to the circle because this is perfect, right? Like, God's getting our attention. That's the jostling
Mhm.
moment. You hear me use that word all the time. It's a kairos. That's
Yeah.
how in our groups and teams that you should totally be in.
Be in one.
That's where we'd process, like, oh, how is God getting my attention? The next question is, what is God saying?
Yeah.
Right. And then we kind of lead around to say, and what is he leading me to do
Yeah.
from that? Now, just think about this. Just in what's happening right here. We present the scriptures for 3 weeks. It jostles people. They have questions.
Yeah.
They're asking the question, so what does God say about that?
Yeah.
Right? And we're trying to lead that. And that's good in kind of video, YouTube community.
Yeah.
But I'm going to, we're talking about the guy who sent you the email.
Yeah.
He could have figured this out himself.
Sure.
If he was quiet and prayed and looked at the scriptures. In some ways, you and I are a shortcut to the scriptures, to guidance. We want to be that.
Please, we want to be that.
Yes. But I'm just saying, like, the questions are great. You got jostled. Then each one of us just has to ask the question, okay, God, what are you really saying? And then search it. You will find it.
Yeah.
Whether from us or from the scriptures or just quietness before God and say, lead me.
Yeah, because the circle, it doesn't negate the idea that you would talk about it with someone.
No, actually, it's part of the circle.
It's actually literally a part of of all of it. So
observe, reflect, discuss.
It doesn't negate the idea that you would do it with a core group of people who know you, love you, and know and love God.
Yeah.
And are trying to hear from God with you.
Yeah, that's a good word.
Yeah. So basically, a lot of our conversation, and this was the last email in this conversation, is like it's so funny, right? People, you can linearly and predictably pick how your money is going to function. Like, it's how the markets work, market trends, all that stuff. It's linear and it's predictable. I can tell you A plus B is going to equal C. So oftentimes when so much of our life, our pragmatics, like money and things like that, rub up against our faith journey, it actually very, very clearly shows how non-linear like our spiritual growth and our spiritual health is.
Yes.
But that doesn't negate the idea that it is also predictable. And so like for many people, you just don't know what the predictable patterns of your faith journey are in order to actually diagnose, well, why is this happening to me? Why does this not meet up with reality? There's lots of really great, really dense textbooks, really great thinkers about this. And if you really want to get into that, we can have a conversation about that. But like, there's basically 6 stages that are really predictable, but they don't go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They go like, you're going to hit this, and then eventually you're going to hit like maybe across the circle, but then you're going to go back to the first one again, and then how that looks. So like, something you're awakened to something, it like gets your attention. Oh my gosh, I didn't know life could be like this, right? Think about it in like dating, like no, like literally
Spark. It's a spark.
Yeah. I didn't know my life could be like this. The next stage in that then is like, oh, I'm gonna learn everything I can about this thing. It's
all in.
I like to call it acquisition. Like, it's like I am trying to gather as much as I can about it. The third step then is production. Which is then like, hey, I'm going to do things for this thing because I love this thing so much. So dating progress, right? I didn't know my life should be better because of you in it, right? And then it's like, I'm going to spend as much time around you as I can, and I'm going to ask you all the questions, the pillow talk questions, and then it's like, okay, so I want us to actually like make something of all the information that I have. And then you actually then start an external journey of production that is letting other people know. So then it's, hey, we're going to get married. Our family is getting bigger. We're going to expand it with children, maybe pets, however you want to look at that. Like, we are going to start actually then trying to invite other people to see the culture that we are creating within ourselves. What then happens in most people, once you get through those 4 stages, you start then working through one stage in 2 parts, inward and then outward. Okay. The inward journey is the one where people rub up against the idea that what I know of reality and what I've walked through don't always mesh. And that point in the middle of those 2, inward into outward, is called the wall. And so
that's good.
People get stuck there, and there's one of 2 options. You either go back and try to recreate the magic of moving through stage 1, which is awakening, then acquisition, then production, and then external production. And then you start going inward and you're like, oh, it still doesn't match up with reality. So then you go back, and that cycle actually just gets faster and faster every time because you're already familiar with how that cycle feels. Or you can take the time to intentionally invite people and God and honestly even yourself to assess, why is this thing that's getting my attention, this kairos even, this circle moment, why is this getting my attention so deliberately, and why doesn't it match up with what I understand about everything I've learned? And that's where those people, and you start to then get the tools to chisel out the bricks of the wall, and you can start to see through and what that external journey looks like. And we have those moments all the time, right? It's the moment when you and your wife decide to go to counseling because it's like, this isn't working and we need help.
Right.
It's the moment where, hey, we're gonna go to church because right now we just need to, and I want to set the right pace for my family. It's the moment to say like, hey, I'm gonna confess that I've been watching porn to my wife because right now this wall of intimacy, I can't get past it, and I think it's because of this.
Yeah.
And so like getting to then that external journey and seeing after the inward, breaking through the wall and getting out, it's like, oh, I'm different now. How I've been working is different now.
Yes.
Ultimately leading to living like Jesus, but that's not always the one for one thing. And it's honestly not even like, oh, so I broke through that and now I'm like Jesus.
Oh, for sure. There's a journey ahead.
Because if time is linear, kairos is that one moment, we can also make that a circle, and you're going to bounce between awakening, production, external, internal journey, like all around. It's non-linear, but all of it aimed at, if you're just constantly trying to move through those things with earnestness, eventually you'll get to like living the life that Jesus invites us to, the life of love, the life of something better, the way God intended it. And so like that's where one of those moments where it's like, hey, when we're talking about money, this was for this person specifically who I was emailing with. It's like, I know you want to pin down, like, because you relate to your money this way, and because you're trying to relate to God in this way, it should just equal contentment, or it should just equal trust, and it should just equal this. And it's like, it's not going to be as linear as you want it to be, but that doesn't make it not predictable. So like we can assess like, oh, so why are you hung up here going inward and going outward? Well, what about you knew about God? What about the production that you've been doing? What about all of that stuff? So it's a long way to say it's just a mess, and we would love to help you work through the mess.
Yeah. But I think like that image of the wall, and that we return to patterns, right? We return to what we knew, what was familiar, what even felt good at a certain time.
Absolutely.
A moment of growth, like that's good. But, every time like those bricks getting through the wall, it's not the breakthrough that makes everything perfect.
No.
But it is a breakthrough that says, I think I need to learn something I hadn't learned yet.
Yeah.
I think I need to take a step, the confession step, that I've been unwilling to take so far. I have to be open to the idea that I don't understand something. And I'm like, those are golden moments in spiritual journeys that we get to walk with people through.
And money's one of those beautiful ones that honestly is like, it's really practical.
There's lots of walls, right, in people's journeys with money, with generosity, which a lot of times where Christianity thinks about money, but also just in like handling money, using money, like, and most of the walls were built by your parents.
Yeah, boy, my therapist said
or
that.
in reaction to your parents.
Or a reaction to your parents, which is super real. Sorry, mom and dad. So like in that, then like one of his questions, like, how much is enough?
Yeah.
Like, how do I know if I'm hoarding or not? Like, right? What a great question. And when am I supposed to know, like, hey, I'm hoarding versus like, no, I'm actually just saving intentionally for later. Like,
yeah, I mean, my most practical answer to this is, the Bible says it's wise to save for the future. And it says it's not wise to hoard, right? What's the difference? Saving for the future means everything that I've saved is earmarked for something, right? It's not just out there just in case.
Sure.
Right? So, I mean, I think a wise person today would save for retirement.
Yeah.
Because the flip side of not saving for retirement is you potentially become a burden to someone else later in life.
Yeah.
And I mean, different personalities are different ways. But for me, that would be like the worst thing possible.
Yeah.
What noble person would make themselves a burden to their own kids later on, right? So You need to save money for retirement? I would. Like, I got kids in college, right?
Yeah.
Like, I can't create that money right away. So, okay, I'm saving this. It's for this purpose. I'm saving this. It's for this purpose. But if I'm just saving to save, to have more, Jesus has some pretty strong language about
Yeah.
tearing down your barns just to build bigger barns.
Yeah.
Like, not a good idea.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And so it has to be aimed at something. That's the point.
Which honestly, it was even the last message of this series, right? Like, hey, how would you have meaning in your life? Well, you'd make it a means to an end. How would you
Put it to work.
Yeah, put it to work. And I mean, that even gets to I had one of my leaders talk about like, hey, like one of the things about like the discipline of restraint, the discipline of self-control in that, like the fruit of the spirit of self-control in that, like is just so good and like directly reflected in that. And actually budget boot camp, if you're in it currently, or if you're on the wait list, or you're like, I'm
We're
interested
getting
in that.
great feedback from people who are in.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised.
One of their principles is literally, it's biblical. Put every dollar is responsible for something.
Yes.
Like super biblical. And this company, I don't know, honestly, if it's a Christian company or not,
I think it is.
I don't know. But everything that they're pointing to is aiming at things that are just wise, biblical things.
Mhm.
And so whether it is or not, like it's going to help you follow Jesus better because it's just good and wise. And it turns out those things happen to correlate.
Yes.
So,
And by the way, Budget Boot Camp has a leader who cares about the people in it.
yeah.
Part of our whole system at Suncrest. If you get in a group or on a team or even one of these temporary things, it's like,
Absolutely.
now you have somebody in your life who cares about you and will help guide you. They'll walk with you.
Yeah. This one is every time we talk about money, like every time we talk about giving. So like, what's the biblical case for relational giving and tithing, especially since we are not under the old covenant? So you may have to give some context for old covenant versus new covenant, biblical or relational giving, tithing, like give a little bit of context.
Bottom line, we use the term relational giving to mean tithing, and tithing literally means 1/10 of your income. That's what you would give to God.
10%.
Yeah. I know people use the word tithing. Sometimes this is a synonym for giving. Like whatever I give, 2%.
Of a tithe.
I tithed.
Yeah.
But literally the word tithing means 10%. You got to know that I love someone to ask the question in this way, to be like, since we don't follow the old covenant, I mean, how many times in the last few years aren't under
Okay.
the old covenant? How many times have I tried to clarify that? So I'm like, yeah, somebody's picking up on it. That's great.
This is
Right. So, and my short answer to that is, if tithing, the 10th, was just an old covenant thing, then I would be the first to disregard it.
Sure.
Because we do disregard, for our practice as Christians today, other parts of the old covenant. Sure, the scriptures say the old covenant is obsolete. It has been fulfilled. It is complete. That's not our covenant, new covenant. So if it were only in the old covenant, I'd say, yeah, don't pay attention to that.
Absolutely.
One of the interesting things about tithing is it actually shows up in the scriptures before the old covenant. Now, we're going to get really technical here, but Genesis chapter 1 through 11 is before the old covenant.
Yep.
Genesis 12, God makes the covenant with Abraham. That is the covenant for the Jewish people that is in place until Jesus comes, right? So everything from Genesis 12 through the end of the Old Testament is the old covenant.
Okay.
But tithing shows up before Genesis 12. It shows up for humanity, right? And the idea that, hey, this world works when people are generous at these levels, take care of people in need, serve God with that money. It also shows up, and I mentioned this in one of my messages, that Jesus affirms the 10th, right? So he's basically in a scenario where some religious leaders are practicing the 10th and not doing other things. And Jesus says you should do both.
Yeah.
Right? So he's not pushing one down to lift the other up.
Yeah.
He's affirming the 10th.
Yeah.
There's not a lot in the rest of the New Testament. There's not anything actually about the particular 10th. So then I come to it and I'm like, okay, I don't want to be a legalist about this at all.
Yeah.
But I do see, one of the things Jesus does with most of the Old Covenant things is he takes them and he accelerates them.
Yeah.
Right? You've heard that it was said, whatever, don't commit adultery.
Yeah.
I tell you, don't look at a woman lustfully.
Yeah.
Like
If your eye causes you to sin, gouge out your eye.
that is what he says. Very aggressively.
Go ahead and gouge out your eyes, guys.
But his point is, in all of this, is like, I know these come across as rules. It's bigger than that. Live it out in your life and don't stop. And I followed the rule.
Yeah.
Stop there. Paul, when he writes the rest of the New Testament, affirms setting aside a portion of your you're giving to be a portion of your income.
Sure.
He doesn't say 10%, but he's like, yes, in alignment with your income.
Yeah.
Do that. And then I think probably the biggest thing for me, when I think about this is, I'm not trying to be legalistic, and I ask people not to be legalistic with me in return.
Sure.
Right. So, hey, you've heard me talk about this. If you're at 3% and it takes you 5 years to get to 10%, I think that's awesome.
It's a journey.
We're all on a journey. You're taking steps forward.
Yeah.
And this is more of it. It's like, okay, tell me about the arc of your giving.
Yeah.
Right. How much progress have you made in the last 5 years?
Yeah.
Right. Older couple at Suncrest. It's just one of those sweet old couples. And, he probably made $3,000 a year when he was, first in the workforce. But he told me a story once and he said, Greg, when we were young, I was taught about tithing and I want to do whatever Jesus teaches us to do. But I literally couldn't do it. Like I couldn't put food on the table and tithe. We could do 4%. That's what we could do. And then he told me, this is my favorite part. He's like, and I just committed that every raise I get for however many years it takes me to get to 10%, I'm giving the full raise to that, right? Because I want to honor God. Yeah. And that's what I'll do. I'm like, I don't know anything that looks more obedient, beautiful, scriptural than that. And I think we all know, most of us, what happens when our income increases is our lifestyle creeps. Right? So it's like, okay, yeah, it's a good threshold. And as you know, I always say, here's the question. What does it look like to trust God? That's why it's relational giving. Yeah. And I don't hesitate to call people to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even one of the caveats of like, we're not saying you don't have a relationship with God.
No.
If you're not giving 10%, which can be honestly a confusing thing, hearing relational giving, which is like, so I don't have a relationship if I'm not. And it's like, no. In a lot of ways, we would say like, you've just redefined your relationship to your money and then actually defined the relationship with your money to God. That's actually probably the better way to say it, right?
That's cool.
So we have some really specific questions about like Suncrest, specifically like how we would handle or think about.
Oh, these were great.
Yeah, these are absolutely great. So does the staff know what people give? I know what I give.
And you know what absolutely no one else gets.
That is also
as a staff member. Right?
True.
So 100% candor here. There are 4 people on our staff. Somebody has to know. Yep. Right? We got a bookkeeper. There are 4 people on our staff who know what people give. Yep. I am one of the 4. And I shouldn't say I know what people give as much as I'd say I have access to know. I can find out if I need to. There are 4 of us. Each of us hold that very confidentially. So average staff member does not know, but yes, there are a few of us that know.
Absolutely. So you and I both said there's no quid pro quo. Right. Like you don't have to give
correct
in order to belong. Like
that's right.
There's not there's not a contractual obligation in order to get. But
I'm probably hypersensitive to that because I hear stories of people who come to Suncrest from other churches who essentially got an invoice or, no, we're not going to do your daughter's wedding or your dad's funeral or whatever.
Or you haven't been questions
giving financially
in this.
Yeah.
I'm like with you like, oh my gosh.
So I always say there is no quid pro quo, right? And what I mean by that is for us to serve you.
Yeah.
Right. Listen. We're not paying dues. That's not what's going on here. No. It's generosity.
Yeah.
Interestingly, I just to be candid, sometimes there are requirements about giving to be in certain positions to serve others here, right? Sure. So we'll serve you no matter what.
Yes.
But we do require that our staff, who's responsible for leading others in the church, that all of our elders who are our church board, for people who are on our business team who are overseeing our finances and checking that they are living generously at this relational level. And, we don't hesitate for that. I know it might jostle some people to think, oh, you require them? Like, wouldn't you want us to? Yeah. The people who are responsible for handling our money, that they themselves for sure are generous. And it's one of the reasons that I do look at people's giving from time to time. I'm like, well, I'm going to make sure that the people who have committed to lead in these areas are living generously.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. You earlier mentioned, not earlier, as in like weeks ago now, you've mentioned how much Suncrest has grown, and that is attendance numbers, or that's people served numbers, maybe the better way to even say that.
we should totally say it that way.
Yeah, people
Yeah,
served.
we're serving 41% more people in the last 2 years.
That's
right. Who are calling this place?
That's bonkers.
It is bonkers. Awesome.
It is like it's
It's
crazy.
what we're aiming at. We want to serve more people.
Yes, more and more people.
Grow in their faith.
It's not just about having a bigger church. It's about having more people know Jesus, feel loved, grow in following, all of that stuff. 41% growth there. And I think that, if I'm remembering correctly, like the dollar per week or the budget week, like giving thing has grown like less than $100 a week.
Yeah, I mean, it was a little more than $100, but it's less than 1%.
Less than 1%
over the last 2
So, over the last few years, less than 1%. We did something big, crazy, scandalously awesome last year called Primed.
We did.
And it was to get us primed for the future. And
people were outrageously generous.
$1.1 million.
Yeah.
Is the issue with the weekly giving not catching up to the 41% growth primed?
Yeah, great question. And a couple clarifications, because I get asked this in person. The numbers I shared about 1% growth does not include Prime. Right. Someone actually asked me, like, man, we did Primed and we're still just 1%. I'm like, no. Primed is over here. That would be really, really.
That would be a way of unintentionally telling people we're really bad with money. No, thank you.
So basically, we received 1.1 million over here for this purpose, and our regular giving is flat. Do those two have anything to do with each other? And I can only suspect that they do.
Yeah.
Right. I know that no matter how often I say, hey, if you're gonna make a gift of Primed, have it be over and above your regular giving. That not everybody does that.
Yeah.
People may have adjusted. Of course, I hope that, like, as we go forward from here, like, we've actually seen what the Prime generosity can do, and it will take effect in our lives.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it probably had an effect. If I feel free in those conversations and someone says, hey, do you think our regular giving, the Prime affected our regular giving? I'll look back and I'll say, I don't know, did Prime affect your regular giving? Because that's the only, and I don't know.
Yeah.
Right. And it's a different storyline for every person.
In some fashion, it's a genuine question.
Well, it's the only.
In my worst, it's a tongue-in-cheek question, but like it is a genuine curiosity for us in some fashion.
Yeah.
I mean, I had someone, it was in one of my like leadership huddles, where the statement was like, we said over and above, and like, how was that? And, like, they were like, I'm talking with someone I'm leading, and they're like, over and above was me giving to that.
Right. I wasn't giving before.
I wasn't giving.
And now I've given something.
And so like, maybe in some ways there's probably a way of looking at it and not diving into either ditch, right?
Right.
There's a piece that's like, hey, we should celebrate that because that's a big deal. And we do celebrate that. Like,
yes,
anytime someone takes the step to repattern their financial life to try to be a generous person.
Yeah.
That's like, bravo. Like, the first step's the hardest one.
Yeah.
Really and truly. In the same vein, probably the majority of you, if that was the thing, probably underestimated how over and above that actually was.
Yeah.
Like, you probably could be giving regularly and because you love what you experience here.
Yeah.
And like, why wouldn't you then like partner with what God is doing here and step into that in a way that actually allows people to step into the same thing that you stepped into, that you love? And it's not just inviting people, it's building a culture, it's building a church to see growth and change.
You and I talk about this all the time from a communication standpoint. Making a difference is a good motivation to give.
Absolutely.
Right. And Primed, it's like, oh, there's something out here. I could be part of helping us take our next step to the property.
And that's fun.
And that's awesome. It's tangible. I can give to something and make a difference. And that's not bad. That's good.
Yeah.
And yet, giving because I'm growing in my faith, giving because I'm trusting God more, reshaping my heart as a giver, not because it will do something, but because it's doing something in me, is really the core of a spiritual journey I want someone to be on.
Yeah.
And that's what I hope that when people give to something like Primed, it sparks something to be like, hey, I can do that. I think God was pleased with that. I had to trust him in that, and it worked. And it feels good to give. So all those internal things, I'm like, well, let's just keep building on that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, we've talked about it a little bit, right? I don't remember, it's a school from UC Berkeley, and they did a study and basically like found out like our brains are literally wired for generosity.
Yes.
Triggers the same dopamine as holding a newborn, your newborn baby.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh my gosh, like I remember those moments. If you don't know those moments, like, like picture like the idea that like, oh my gosh, the care, just the excitement of that. How does Suncrest think about budgeting by both faith and wisdom?
Yeah. I mean, so probably the same way, hopefully the same way you think about your budget, to say, okay, well, I don't, some people say what's faith to one person is stupidity to another, right? In the sense that, hey, I'm going to budget to make $1 million next year when you have no hope of making $1 million. That would be stupid, actually. Not that gets cast as faith. So for us, it's always about like, what is the line where we are trusting God for what's next? But it's also wise. Like we've seen what's happened before. We anticipate what could happen in the future. We see the number of new people coming. We anticipate that will bring, more offerings in. So that's how we budget. I'll just say that for us, I have a friend who's a pastor, and this is what he says to his church. I'll try it out on you. I'm not sure I even love it, but he says, we set the vision, you set the pace, right? And your leaders at Suncrest, as you will not be surprised by, we have a vision, right? We know where we want to go. We know what God's calling us to, impacting the next generation, planting more churches, serving Northwest Indiana. Like there's a region. The amount of offerings that come in decide for us how quickly we can accomplish that vision.
Wow. Yeah.
Right? So we'll set the vision. I'll take the responsibility for saying, I think this is where God's leading us to go. But we can't go beyond the pace of the offerings. So however much people give, that will set the pace of the vision. So I used to say, we only eat what we kill.
Very cave.
I should probably go with my friend's line.
I like whether you like it or not. I really like that line. Like it offers clarity, right? Like we are being led somewhere. Like
we don't spend money we don't have.
No, heck
That's a very Suncrest, I think, godly thing. We do not spend money we don't have. So we live within our means, and whatever comes in, that's what we feel like we have to use for the kingdom work.
Yeah. Speaking of like what comes in, like what are the ways that people, so like cash, check, like those are all pretty obvious, like digital, like all that stuff. There's credit card fees, ACH, like all that stuff. Like, and in a world where, if I'm being honest, I don't understand, like digital currency and like
crypto, man.
Do it, man. Listen, if
you had previously bought some crypto,
I don't know. At this point, I don't understand it, and I'm too afraid to ask.
Can Suncrest receive a crypto donation? Is that what you're asking?
Sure.
We will figure it out. That's what I have to say. But I will say this, and I understand this might hit a 10% slice of the audience.
Still 10%.
But in nonprofit world, I sit on a few nonprofit boards. In nonprofit world, donor advised funds have accelerated like crazy. And I utilize one. I encourage our staff to utilize them.
Oh yeah, I use one. That's what it's called.
You're not even sure, are you?
No, it's called.
Sometimes we call it a giving fund, but the formal name is a donor advised fund. And so I encourage people to utilize that tool for planning and taxes, but also a way to be generous. And Suncrest receives some of our largest gifts through people's donor advised funds, and it's fantastic. You get to choose when to take your tax break, and you get to hand it out on your timing. So that's a good tool. Required minimum distributions on IRAs. Again, this only applies if you're 67 or older. Actually, probably 70. I think the new law is going to be 75. But if you're an older person and you feel like, hey, I'm required to take this amount out of my IRA each year, there are huge tax advantages to just directly donating that rather than receiving it and then donating it.
There you go.
And again, I know my mom watches the podcast. She does this every year, and Suncrest is one of the places that benefits. And it's like, it's just a smart way to give. It maximizes the finances. I'll say a couple other things. One of my very good friends who lives in the financial world says, friends do not let friends give cash if you have appreciated stock, right? So you might think, well, I don't own any stock.
I know.
And maybe you don't.
I know what some of those words mean.
Yeah. But if you have stock that's appreciated, I won't go into the details here, but talk to your own financial advisor. Talk to me. Like, it is such an advantage tax-wise to donate your stock rather than donating cash. And that we make that very easy at Suncrest. Suncrest, because of our work in the community, we have a separate 501c3 called Suncrest Charities. And lots of employers will do matching funds to a charity, but they may not do it to a church.
Sure.
Because we have Suncrest Charities, we can receive employer matching gifts all the time.
Wow.
So, I mean, some employers do $500 a year, some do $5,000 a year, and you can literally double the impact of your gift if you do it through that route and let your employer match it. So again, we love to talk about that. And then I always encourage, I mean, this is long-term thinking, but, we're doing the legacy planning seminar.
I'm just for it. Hopefully you are too.
I just think, I think you should give while you're alive, but you should definitely give when you die. Can I just say it that way?
I mean, you did.
So like, if you have any assets at all, then my goodness, I mean, if you just think like, there are people who have, Suncrest has never been on the receiving end of a large estate planning gift.
Sure.
But I know we are in some people's estate plans. And who knows, when it comes time to build this building, if someone who previously put us in there, will land Suncrest with a 6-figure gift, right? It would just be a difference maker.
It would be.
And it's good in every way.
Yeah.
So, this is all about the future. The main thing I always say about estate planning is make sure your kids, there's clarity around what happens to your kids. But also, if you have any, sense of assets, business, wealth at all, man, do that in a smart way for your kids' sake and for your generosity's sake.
Yeah, absolutely. So, does God, quote unquote, bless you when you give? How are you supposed to think about that?
Yeah.
It feels like a quid pro quo.
Yeah, not a Suncrest quid pro quo, but maybe a God quid pro quo, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I had not thought about that until you just said that. But let's play with that idea a little bit. Does God bless you? The answer is a very careful yes.
Okay.
He does. The reason I say it is because the scriptures teach it, right? Old covenant, right, which is not our covenant, but at the very establishment of that, you do see something about the nature of God. And God says to Abraham, I will bless you and you are to be a blessing, right? And it's just like, okay, in an orientation of our lives around God, that's a good principle to remember. And again, if it was just old covenant, I'd probably be like, not for us. But Jesus comes back, and I shared this in the last message. Like, he says, forgive and you'll be forgiven, right? He says, don't condemn and you won't be condemned. He says, give and it will be given to you. Jesus says that, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm always careful around like promising you some dollar number, promising you some wealth, promising you cash, even, because blessings, don't use the word blessing and mean cash. The Bible doesn't mean that. Right. And yet in the big picture of, hey, God's goodness comes to us. We should absolutely take God's goodness, pass it on to others. In the way that God works, he brings that goodness back to us. And then we pass it on to others. And this is the life you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't want to interrupt that cycle.
No.
Right. And God doesn't ask you to go first. He doesn't say, first you go, and then I'll give something back to you. That's the quid pro quo, right? He's saying, actually, I'm giving you a lot. Give some back. Give you more, not just money. So that's big.
I mean, even in that, like how has God given me anything, right? Like, I can immediately be like, well, so where is it, Greg? Like, how is he?
Yeah. And I had somebody tell me once, like, oh, yeah, Greg, you're generous and God's blessed you. Look how long your van has lasted. 340,000 miles. I'm like, I don't think that's a blessing. That might be a curse.
Actually. It's what's the meme? It's like, hey, I asked for prayers for my grandpa. Please quit praying for him. He's now too strong and he's broken out of the hospital. It's like that, right?
Yeah.
But it's maybe even just a recontextualization of provision, right? Like there's the passage that's like, think of the lilies. Like
Yeah.
they're not looking to be dressed or beautiful. Like you just
Right.
make them that. Think of the sparrows, the birds. Like they don't
Yes.
ever wonder. They're gonna
God
find the
takes care of
food
them.
because you're gonna provide the food for them
Yeah.
to like. And
Yeah.
and aren't you so much more valuable to God than birds and flowers? I'm sorry, Jenna, you're more valuable than birds.
This gets back to your nonlinear idea too, right? If I try to say, well, I gave 5,000, so God owes me 5,000 back, or 10, whatever your calculation, like, oh, you just missed it.
Yeah.
Right. It is not this for that.
Yeah.
It's in a much bigger picture.
Yeah.
I trust, he entrusts to me.
Yeah. I had a really smart Old Testament professor, and I was not a very good student, but this is the one thing that has stuck with me ever since then, as bad of a student as I was.
Okay.
So, the way that he described it, he's like, so like blessing, like, let's talk about blessings for a while. This was in, it was called Hebrew History and Literature, is the way that,
exciting.
oh man, it was, played a lot of bubble shooter on my computer, and let me tell you, so sorry, Dr. Mangano. But also, the way that he described this, I was like, that it was just eye-opening. So like blessing from the New Testament sense, like back looked at from an Old Testament perspective. So the people who were hearing about God saying it's called the Beatitudes. So blessed are
Yes.
like the poor in spirit.
Yes.
Like it's like it sounds like basically if your life is terrible, like you're blessed, which is like that feels wrong.
Right.
But like what it's trying to say, what their contextualization of it from the old covenant perspective they had was basically a blessing is you being shown more of the kingdom of God.
Oh, that's good.
So then every blessing is showing you more of what life is supposed to or could be like, so that you can show other people like what life could and should be like. And ever since then, when I like that conversation, like, oh, you're so blessed. And I was like, you said it, it's like, man, that the guy who was uncomfortable when he found out you're a pastor, it's like, man, that putt was blessed. It's like, no, I lined it up. Like, actually, God wasn't showing me the kingdom there. That was me. But like even in that, like when we give, are you blessed? It's like, yeah, you are blessed because you will start to see the kingdom
breaking out
in ways that you did not see it before. And then you take that vision of what life could be like and you invite other people to see it as well. You share that vision. Like,
love that.
That has just stuck with me so deeply. And I'm like, oh no, I want to call you to those blessings.
Yeah.
I don't want you to think of it as cash. I want you to think of it as like, when you get blessed, you have a fuller and more complete picture of heaven, of creation as God intended it, of what the kingdom coming here and now, already and not yet looks like. Oh man, like that just goosebumps. That's like literal goosebumps on my arms. Like
it's Pastor Mitch right there. You should listen to that, dude. That's fantastic.
So, Greg, you have a phrase. I love this phrase. To be honest with you, we use it in our house now.
Yep.
Because it is just such a true phrase, and it changes scarcity mindset versus functional mindset. And I think that there is a good differentiation and a biblical differentiation between them, right?
Yes.
If you have a money problem or a problem that money can solve and you have money, you don't have a problem.
Yeah. I love this phrase. It's so good. For two reasons though, and this is what I want to clarify. So one is like, why do people who have a little money in the bank get stressed about a bill? Like, actually, God's provided for you. Like, you don't have a problem. Also, there are real problems in the world money can't solve.
Absolutely.
Right? So this is saying, if you have a problem money can solve and you have money, you don't have a problem.
Yeah.
But sometimes you throw money trying to solve problems that can't be solved with money.
Get them, Greg.
And that's foolish.
Yes.
Right? And we all see it in the rearview mirror.
Yes.
But don't throw money at problems money can't solve.
Yeah.
Let that, like, can money solve this problem? That's the question.
Yeah.
If it can, and you got money, no problem.
Yeah.
But it may not be able to be solved with money. So don't throw money at a problem money can't solve.
Yes. Ugh. That's like a whole series. Like we could talk for 3 weeks on that, because the honesty of like throwing money at stuff is the easiest way to try to solve problems, because it doesn't require me to change anything.
That's right.
And so like the ability like to stop and process that, like, is this a problem that money can actually solve? Like, are you about to buy your kids out of not like it's all those things, right?
Right.
Are you about to spend enough money to trust God more? It's like, oh my gosh, like there's so many layers to that. Whew. I wish to keep talking about it, but we got to keep going. Money and trades from the shrewd manager. What are the best trades that you have made in the scene? So talk about these money trades first.
Yeah. So the whole point here is, if you think you're going to trade your time, your health, your well-being, your mental health
Arthur Brooks
for money
from Harvard, the 5 things you can do with your money.
That's a bad trade.
Yeah.
Right. What you should do is think, I'm not trying to get money. I'm trying to use the money I have to get or accomplish other things. Money is the means to a greater end.
Yeah.
Right. So we use money for purposes. And then you stop and think, like, of course, for generosity, right? If you're a follower of Jesus, but not just generosity.
Yeah.
Like, that's the shrewd manager is like, actually, you can buy time with money. Actually, you can buy influence or relationships with money. And I know the first time I say that to people, it always sounds a little weird. And
You get 5 friends.
same little joke, right? Come be your friend. I'll give you $50.
I've yet to get my $50.
Says something about our friendship, maybe. I'm sorry.
I'm showing up for free, I guess.
You do. So, but I think this is the one that trips people up. Like, okay, how does that actually work?
Mhm.
So I just thought, let me give you a few other examples, right? So, our daughter's in college.
Mhm.
We go visit her from time to time. We take her out for dinner, of course. And I'm always like, bring your friends, right? Bring your friends. I'll buy them dinner too, right? And you think, man, that's going to cost you, Greg.
Yeah.
It's going to cost you another $20 per person, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's a good trade.
Yeah.
I get to know her friends. Her friends get to see her family. I get to have conversations with her for the next few weeks about what her friends are doing. I'm just trading money for relational capital.
Yeah.
Right? I'm like, you should do that. When I was the youth pastor here, I think this lives on the edge of like, oh, does that feel inappropriate? But this is the shrewd manager, okay? When I was the youth pastor here, one of the guys who had kids in the youth group would take me golfing, right? I was 22 years old. Golfing's expensive. I didn't get to play golf unless somebody took me golfing. I think he saw that and thought, I'll pay for Greg's golf, and I'll get to spend a few hours with him, and I'll get to listen to how he's going to influence my child. He's the youth pastor, and he may have even been buying a little bit like, hey, and I bet Greg takes care of my child if I take care of him, right? Now, you got to be careful, very careful about those things. And yet,
Greg drives a 400,000-mile minivan, so if you're
and he bought me rounds of golf. Yeah, right. Yeah. But I'm just saying, like, I've always thought about that. And I think, oh, if I had the chance, would I take one of Abby's professors golfing?
Oh, man.
So that I haven't done that. And Abby's like, quit talking about me, Dad.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Sorry.
But this is the point. Like, you can use money to build relationship. Building relationship gains influence. That's a smart way to use money. That's not unethical. That's what Jesus taught us to do in this parable of the shrewd manager. So money isn't evil. Money is a tool.
Yeah.
Right? It's a tool to be used. Use it for good health. Use it to buy yourself some time. I've used this illustration. I hate putting it online, but during the school year, while Jenny's teaching, we pay somebody to clean our house.
Yeah.
Right? We don't do it in the summer. She's home. And when we first started talking about that, I had like a moral rejection of that.
We're not those people.
We're not those kind of people, right? And it comes, upbringing, all those different things. Like, there's a certain kind of person you picture that would do that. And someone just challenged me on this. Like, so Greg, you can spend a little bit of money and it gives your wife some freedom that she doesn't have, or you some freedom. Not that we live in too traditional of a home. I'm like, I don't know. Jenny makes enough money working at the school that this is a pretty good trade-off to pay somebody to clean our house. And everything's better.
Yeah.
Everything's better.
Yeah. I mean, so last year after we had Cal, who's now 9 months old, it's one of those things where it's like end of season and it's like, I hadn't trimmed any of our landscaping. I hadn't mowed in forever. I called the people who do the landscaping here and I was like, hey, I need your help. Like, I need to close this down. I'm super late in the season. Our yard, our landscaping, it's a mess.
Yes.
And I'm like, I don't care. I don't care how much it's going to cost because what I know.
They'll treat you fairly, right?
Yeah, they'll treat me fairly. And then I get a call from Jess one day, and she was like, "The lawn boys are here." I'm like, it was one of those things where I was like,
Right.
"You mean the lawn?"
Right. We're not the kind
They're not
people
those
people that.
And
Right.
then I call and I'm texting with Matt is his name. And I'm like, hey, like how much do I owe? He's like, no, this is like you guys just had a kid. Like,
Yeah.
like let me honor this in you. And now it's like it's one of those things where he used his influence
Yeah.
to help mine. And now like every time I see them, I'm always like, hey, how are the girls? What have you guys been up to lately? Because he actually used his money, his
Yep.
influence, the things he had to actually buy something from me, which is like, oh, I actually uniquely care about you because you uniquely cared about me. Like,
This is it. You just appreciate that things are currency,
yeah,
right? That can solve things.
Yep.
Money can solve.
Yes, absolutely. So, you should do it. Spend by your friends. So money and heart, like don't give
Yeah.
to what you care about, give to what you want to care about.
Yeah.
Help unpack that.
I don't have much to unpack. It's actually just a quote I heard after I preached the sermon where I would have used it. So I'm like, is there a place I can use this?
Right.
The podcast seemed like a great
now.
place. But I have consistently talked about this idea that Jesus says, wherever your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And his principle, which will blow your mind if you think about it, is I know your instinct is to think, well, I get my heart in the right place,
and then my money will
and
follow.
then my money will follow that. And Jesus says the opposite. The opposite.
Yeah.
He's like, actually, wherever your money goes, your heart is going to chase that. So I heard this guy say, he's like, don't give to what you care about. Give to what you want to care about.
And that's really good when you say it like that now.
Right?
Now that I know the context of it.
So like your heart will chase whatever you send your money to do. So whatever you want to care about, and hopefully that's faith and generosity and changing things for the kingdom, send your money that direction. Your heart will follow.
Yeah, that's so good. It reminds again, this is in like that meme world where it's like the tweets that you see. I think that if I'm remembering correctly, this is a quote from a sermon I've heard, but the concept.
If it's one of my sermons,
It's not, I'm sorry.
Okay.
It's one of Greg's sermons. Like your flesh. So like when scripture talks about flesh, like it's the things that are impermanent and broken.
Yes.
Like that is the rough 30,000 foot view that your flesh,
Right.
the things that are going to die and
They don't last.
and they're broken.
Yes.
Your flesh wants to take you to hell and it's not even coming with you.
You're right. That is not from one of my sermons.
It's not.
And it's brilliant.
Yeah. Like,
oh my goodness.
My desire, like my broken desires, it
wants to take you to hell and your flesh is
it ain't even coming with me. It like my greed wants to take me to hell and it ain't even coming with me. Like it's like all of those things,
that's
right?
gold.
It's that same thing, right? Like instead of trying to pattern your life in a way that'll maybe get you there, it's like, no, start throwing it at the thing.
Yeah. Throw your life in that direction. Throw your resources, throw your time in that direction.
Yeah. I mean, the same thing goes with connecting in life-changing relationships. Guess what? You've probably never had a meaningful relationship, let alone a life-changing relationship that you didn't throw yourself at.
That's right.
Like you've probably never made a difference in something or in the world or in your work or whatever, and you didn't throw yourself at it. Like,
yeah, it's even true in becoming a follower of Jesus, right? Like lots of people sit on the edge and be like, well, just one more question, or this is my dilemma or whatever. I'm like, tell me the question I can answer that will get you over the hill. And they don't have them because they just want to
Yeah.
hold back. And I'm like, go for it. Go put your trust in him and then see if it works.
Yeah. Man.
Because it does.
Yeah, it's jumping in the pool.
Yep.
You can try to tow at a time.
Yep.
Or you're just gonna get wet. One of the two.
Yes.
So so the plus side, that was 3 weeks this year.
Yep.
Like, unashamed to talk about money because it affects every part of our life.
Yes.
We want to be sensitive to it.
Yep.
And honest about it.
Yeah.
But we don't want to be afraid of it because God wasn't afraid of it. Jesus wasn't afraid of it. And in some ways, realistically, like, we're not afraid of it as people. Like, it's scary in contexts.
Yeah.
But no one's actually afraid of money. So, like, let's actually talk about it and let's be open to it and let's lead each
We
other.
call you to something that Jesus calls us to, and it's great.
Yeah. So, thanks, Greg.
Yeah. Thanks, Mitch.